Welcome to another episode of The Worthy Physician. I'm your host, Dr. Shah-Haque, reigniting your humanity and passion for medicine. With each episode, we bring you inspiring stories, actionable insight, and expert advice. Get ready for another engaging conversation that could change the way you think and live. As a physician, your income is your greatest asset. Protect it with Pattern Life, the easy, stress-free way to find the right disability insurance. With unbiased comparisons and no jargon, Pattern helps you to choose the best policy for your needs. Secure your future today at Pattern Life. The link is in the show notes. Let's dive in. What inspires you? What inspires you to get up every day, put your best foot forward in medicine and in your personal life? Today, we're going to dive right into that conversation with Dr. Sarah Wittry. Welcome to another episode of The Worthy Physician. I'm your host, Dr. Shah-Haque, reigniting your humanity and passion for medicine. So, Sarah, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Sapna, for joining me as well. It's really a pleasure.
I'm very happy we got to connect. Life got a little hectic, but here we are.
Yes, it's how it happens, and we roll with it, and we still made it happen.
We did. But let's dive right into inspiration.
Sure.
What does that word mean to you?
That's a good question. I think it has shifted over the years for me. But currently, how I see inspiration is really like who I am on a personal level and kind of what inspires me, like what are the things that make me feel most passionate, and sort of the elements that come with that really help me to, like you said, wake up, feel not just a motivation but a sense of flow and energy, and just like it's not a slog. So I feel like inspiration has to come with a bit of alignment, probably, for me. And that can look wildly different, like sometimes day to day, but I think there's like common elements that, as you, or at least for me, as I've like learned more about myself, I've been able to almost like put it together like a recipe a little bit. The things I keep coming back to.
No, I would have to agree. It's more than just motivation. It is going to be that alignment with core values, alignment with what I'm doing from day to day is true or aligns with my true self.
Absolutely.
And I think you said a key thing in there about alignment and still getting or learning about yourself. I find that's an ongoing everyday process.
Yes. And really it's not a static thing, right? Because it's like, I don't know if you can identify this, but it's like at certain points in my life, most of my purpose felt like devoted to learning and growth and like, learning all the science and the medicine and like becoming the best possible doctor I thought I could be. And that was really like, I don't know, probably, I don't know if I can put a percent on it, but that was like my main area of focus. And it's like, um, I don't know, in the last decade, there's been space, a little bit more space, that I've created to sort of say, like, what else? What else makes me who I am? And what else makes me find that inspiration and that drive and that like desire to dig into something? Um, and I don't know, it's like a discovery process, really, because when it opens up and it's more than one area of life that maybe has been like dominating for me or for anyone, right? It's like this process of creativity and like discovery of joy and just like almost like I don't know, like an energetic thing, right? Like what brings me energy, what drains my energy. Like those are things I've been really, really learning and like, yeah, finding a lot there to unpack and to like discover and explore.
And how do you stay on top of that? Like, how do you stay engaged with still learning about yourself and honoring that the fact that may change during different seasons in life?
Yeah, I'd say that as far as like staying on top of it, I guess developing like some consistent practices or habits of checking in with myself. Because if I've not done that in the past, it's like kind of just the days and the weeks blend together like a little bit on autopilot, right? But if I have a sense and I have a practice, I guess it is, of checking in with myself in the morning, checking in with myself in the evening, and then kind of growing from there. So now I have little, I don't know, times of my day that I kind of like look, turn my lens from external and everything going on around me to like an internal practice of even just how you're doing right now. What do you need? And I don't know. I think that's like an area I've grown a lot and been able to see it is helping me become more familiar with myself, right? And kind of the things I may need to replenish myself here and there. If I kind of go without stopping, and there's always needs around us, right? As doctors, as moms, like it's like that's not a that's never something where I just nobody needs us. So it's really been a practice for me, I think, of like checking in, tuning in, and seeing like what do I need right now, and then the next step is like honoring that, right? Which is uncomfortable because you're like, well, I don't have time to like step outside right now. Like I have to get back to X, Y, and Z, all these things that need to be done. Um, but I think when I'm able to do that some of the time, like I celebrate that as a small win and build on that.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. As physicians and as moms, no matter the age of the kids, um, somebody is always needing something, and it's from mom. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really important to, hey, if it's 5 minutes that you get to check in with yourself, or even like a what I call a mommy timeout, that's
Yes. Love
a win. And it
it.
doesn't have to be hours upon hours. And if you have time for that, fantastic. But yeah, don't forget to check in on yourself.
Right. How about yourself? What do you think? Like, what are ways that you tune in to things that are helping you feel inspired or like knowing even what that is?
Yeah, for me, inspiration is uh joy. It is joy, it is a sense of peace with what I'm doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So going back to the alignment, I have to know myself, and my core values I don't think necessarily have changed, but they've grown
Yeah.
as I've grown as a person, and my needs at 42 are much different than at 20. So it's
Mm-hmm.
I do make it a point to, like you said, explore that. And it's not, I try to every day. And sometimes it's very difficult with some young kids and a career and a family, but um, holding that space, I find that at night after the kids have gone to bed, that's my best time.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be, sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 5 minutes, but it might
Mm-hmm.
be meditation, prayer, or even an audiobook,
Mm-hmm.
creative writing. And
Awesome.
so that keeps me inspired to check in with myself, that the creativity helps me to maybe process a difficult day
Mm-hmm.
or challenging, I would say.
Yeah.
But inspiration for me goes back to exactly what we've been discussing.
Totally.
The only thing I will add is that during the process of whatever I'm doing, I enjoy it. And that brings positive energy, which therefore goes forth and multiplies, if you will.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's one thing to kind of like plan and carve out those times for ourselves, right? Whether it's like the 5 minutes of writing or listening to something you enjoy or whatever. And then it's
Yeah.
another thing for us, or at least for myself, of like being present in the moment and like allowing that inspiration, that energy, right, to flow through you, in you, whatever. Sounds very like spiritual, whatever. But I think it is like a practice, and it really like amplifies that experience, right? And it's probably some like dopamine in our brain that says like, hey, this is a good thing, like do this again, right? Like it's a high return on investment activity for you, because not only is it something that like inspires you, but it also is like something you enjoy a lot while you're doing it and practicing it. So hopefully that like teaches ourselves over time that it's like not only okay, but it's like refueling and energizing. And it's like, we should keep doing that stuff, leaning into it.
100%. And, you know, I can't say that I've always felt inspired in my career or
Yeah.
in my personal life.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
Mm. Yeah, for sure. I would say, I mean, some of the stuff is kind of like a slog at home, right? It's like it's not very inspiring to do laundry. It's not very inspiring to like tidy the house, right? Sometimes it's not very inspiring to be with the kids, like depending on their moods and stuff like that, right? Like it's just like
Yeah.
you do it. And then for sure at work, there's definitely days or seasons where I don't feel that particularly inspired. And I think how that's changed for me, or how I've tried to integrate some of that, the inspiration, the joy, the like passion um, at work, would be related to small ways, even of interacting with like my colleagues um, in a way that is a deeper level of connection, or seeking out that kind of common ground, shared experience, something like that. And I find that brings me like a sense of peace, a sense of purpose for that day, even if it's a 5-minute interaction in the office when everyone's finishing their notes. If I can like carve that out, some days that's like something that feeds back into my soul, right? And it's like those things, like seeing those things and noticing them and then being like they matter, has been really helpful to me on the days where it's just like nothing seems to go quite right on with your patients, or with frustration of things going on. And certainly like other areas I found I'm really passionate about, like well-being in general. And so being able to figure out and almost like chart a path for myself with wellness for my own team. I've like carved out some FTE and got some of that. So to just like invest my skills, my energy, my passion into that for our team has been like really inspiring for me, or fulfilling, because it's like a way that I'm like channeling all that stuff I care about a lot into like sprinkling it with everyone else. You know what I mean? Which a few years ago I would have been like, oh, that's like silly, or probably not even thought about it, and definitely not thought it was like a possibility to do, to get paid and have dedicated hours a week to do that. You know what I mean? Um, but it really
Yeah,
does help.
that's awesome that you were able to do that, though, because um, I mean, if a place of work can allow you, support you in
Mhm.
doing something like that is important to you,
Yeah,
and we know that that'll help with productivity. I mean,
totally,
it's a win-win.
totally, totally. Yes. Is there anything you found to be inspiring for yourself at work, or ways that you like bring that in? Because it can be real challenging when you're like same. It sometimes feels like Groundhog Day, for like going to work, doing the same.
Yeah, yeah, especially during the winter months, the shorter daylight hours, it's really hard to keep that energy flowing, at least for me.
Yes.
Um, and so there are seasons like you were talking about where I would say I feel less inspired, but I think that having great coworkers, having a great place to work, and nothing's perfect, but
Mhm.
having the support, having a community and that team is so important, because I feel like medicine has everybody's in their own office doing notes, but
Mhm.
we over the lunch break or after at the end of the day, I would say there's an unofficial huddle where we can de-stress or discuss cases and bounce ideas off of each other clinically. You know,
Mhm.
for me, that has always been um, a great point of camaraderie,
Yeah,
community, and inspiration because it's just good to have that sounding board. My
absolutely.
cat just knocked something off. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
But it's knowing when I'm hitting a lower point of inspiration or where the dread of getting caught in a loop of I don't want to say bad energy, but I'm being aware of my inner thoughts, my inner
Mm,
feelings.
totally.
Um, that's a must for me.
Yes.
Going back to checking in, and if I find that energy level, that motivation, that inspiration level is dropping, then I need to find out, okay, what's going on internally because I mean I can't change insurance companies. I hate prior authorizations. They have too much
Mm-hmm.
power,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the reality of it.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So okay, so I can vent about that, but let's move past that and what can I do internally to not change my view, but how can I um, best overcome that obstacle in an efficient and an effective manner.
Right. So it doesn't like drain you for the rest of the day or like send you, I don't know, send you in like a spiral, right? Like it's not dragging you down all the time.
Right, right. And it's kind of going back to, okay, that was 5 minutes ago. I need to focus on where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm.
And if I need to readdress it, I'll readdress it in a timely manner, but also delegating things to the team, to
Mm-hmm.
the LPN, to the medical assistant, things
Yes.
like that. So delegation is a big thing for me.
Totally. Totally. It's a hard skill to develop and practice because it's like we all are like, well, just do it ourselves because it'll go faster and we'll explain and da da da. Like it's easier, it's better, but it's like so freeing when we can do it and like frees up time and mental space for ourselves. For sure.
Yeah. And that's one thing I think that we as physicians forget because we do have a limited amount of mental space, even though we have a great ability to
Mhm.
compartmentalize
Mhm.
and to triage and handle many things at once. One thing we forget is we also have two limited resources, and that is time
Mhm.
and energy.
Yeah.
So I need to know how to use those two resources so that way I can be present at work, I can be efficient, I can be
Right.
effective, but
Right.
then also I want to reserve some of that for my crazy kids when I come home.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. They need a lot of energy.
Yeah. Thank God for coffee, but
I know. I know. No, it's
there's
so
also a limit to that too.
yes, for sure, for sure. And that's like that's been a practice I've been doing as well. It's like like you said, I've gotten really good at being efficient and like powering through and not procrastinating, like it's almost like we've had to develop all those things in order to just like make it through the day. Um, but sometimes that comes at the expense of stress or anxiety or just feeling disconnected because I'm just pushing through rather than like taking that minute to check in. And sometimes, like, what I need is not to push through and like just keep going and producing. I need to like take a step, move my body for a few minutes, need to like do some breathing, do some guided imagery or like a 5-minute meditation, like something that's like kind of reconnecting me to myself, right? And then I find that I'm more efficient after that, and there's less like internal mental and emotional angst, anxiety. I don't know, kind of just like stuff that feels draining, right, inside. And it's like I just need that like refresher, restoring little period. And it really does help me, even though like for a long time I was like, no time for that, no time for that.
Yeah, and I find that I have to make time, right? Because if you
Yes.
consider, um, if in medicine, I mean, there's another patient every 15, 20 minutes. If it's a new patient or a complicated patient, it might be more than that. But Imagine that you have, I mean, this has been a meme on social media. You have a meeting every 15 to 20 minutes.
Hmm.
Even the C-suite, or even if you go to a conference, there's an intermission. There's time to walk around, uh, answer nature's call, get some water,
Right.
get some coffee, right? So
Yes.
it's okay to make that time to honor yourself and to answer to your bodily functions or hydrate or caffeinate. I mean, we're human beings too. We're not robots. So for me, it's very important to, like, after breaking bad news,
Yeah.
I'm not okay to jump right in and go see the next patient immediately. I have to sit down, close my office door, and take a breath
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No,
because
that's
these are human beings that we're dealing with, and it's hard, no matter how long you've been in practice, to break that bad news.
absolutely.
I think we as physicians carry that with us. That's
Mhm.
something that we forget, and I think that sometimes patients forget that too. Sometimes, not all the time,
Right.
but it's important to pause and
Mhm.
honor. Hey, that was really difficult.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's like tending to ourselves, like physically, right? Our physical needs, but also like acknowledging and tending to our own like emotional um needs because we're humans and we're doing, yeah, difficult work, right? And so if we just keep powering through and not like ever processing, I think that just accumulates in us, right? And it can have consequences that we don't really love to have that kind of come out. Um, so I totally agree.
They come out sideways. I mean, it's either stop and acknowledge, or that frustration might be coming out toward family, toward
Hmm.
staff,
Hmm.
toward the self. I mean, none of that's good either.
No, no, absolutely. Absolutely. But we're not really taught that. We're not taught that in medical school or in residency or fellowship, to like acknowledge your own emotions and respect them and do something with them and help yourself, like be kind to yourself, right? Be compassionate to yourself about what you're experiencing. And I think part of it is just talking about it because I think most everyone is like feeling it. But when you look around and you're like, seems like everyone else is like just kind of keeps going or it's not really affecting them as much or something, right? You kind of think you imagine that you are the only one, which is hardly ever, if ever, true. um, but I think like there's like a vulnerability with talking about it and how it's just challenging. Like even I talk to my residents and fellows about it, and I think sometimes they look at me like no one's ever really talked to me about that before, right? But I'm like, it's so important just to recognize, and it's like they feel this safe, like an exhale almost, some of them, right? They're able to like process a little bit of like, oh, like you see me as a human, not just like someone to evaluate. Do you know what I mean? And
Yes.
I just think it's so important, like to kind of change the culture of medicine. That's my idea, right? Is to change the culture of medicine over time, like acknowledging the humanity and the people that like the system is broken, but we have it's full of individual human beings who are have their own needs and values and emotions, and like, we got to recognize that and tend to it.
100%. 100%. Because I will say that your medical students and residents are very lucky, blessed to have you as an attending, because you see them as human beings. And in medical school, and in residency, I was blessed enough to have great attendings in my internal medicine residency program that
And
saw me as a human, and I still keep in touch with them.
that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. But part of the reason why I chose that specialty was because of the interactions that I wasn't just a number.
Hmm.
Besides, I love the fact that the complexity and the investigating part of internal medicine, but it was also the faculty that were just amazing.
Yeah. No, it's so true. Like the experiences we have, I think we don't think about all the time, but it definitely influences our decision and specialty for sure.
Yeah, and we forget how much of um, much of one interaction can have a
Mhm.
lasting impact.
You're right. You're right.
Now, don't get me wrong, we're all gonna have bad days, but it's like, how do you recover from that?
Hmm.
Are you
Hmm.
gonna have more good days and more bad days? And a lot of that kind of comes from, at least for me, it's been through the inner work, working on the self. And um,
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
think it's selfish. I think that's going back to as a simple question of what do you like to do outside of medicine? What do you
Hmm.
like to do as a human being?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Like that's always worthy time. It's worthy time spent, like figuring that out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What makes somebody worthy?
Ooh. This is a good question. Um, I think, I believe, I should say, that humans are worthy because they exist. Like, right? It's not maybe the common thing that we have been conditioned to believe in our society, um, which is, essentially from a very young age, like it's sort of like you're kind of worthy, but you're more worthy if you do more and you achieve more and you produce more, you help more. Um, I believe that that's what we take in and internalize, and then kind of live out. But I think that the inner work, like you speak of, it like teaches us that like our worthiness is, it's just a fact, right? It's not dependent on any of that. Um, and so believing that, that's work, right? It can be work to shift that underlying like core belief that we're worthy just because we are. Um, but I think it is very healing if we are working on believing that. Because I wouldn't say that it comes easily. At least it did not for me. And sometimes it still is like something I have to meditate on. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a different thing to hear it and kind of believe it versus embodying that belief and like knowing deep in your bones that that's true about you and about all the people that are around.
Right. I mean, there's a difference between working for what you have,
Hmm.
but what you have physical or physical items or a bank account does not determine a person's worth.
Hmm.
And it's just something inherent. It's something we're born with. We're born with the worthiness of being loved, of being cherished, of being respected. And on a human level, there's just that basic understanding. I wish that were more mainstream.
I know. I wish it was taught in our schools, emphasized in our workplaces and stuff like that. I think that would be so welcomed in all sectors, really.
Yeah, yeah.
Humanity.
And I'm not trying to get religious, but I went to Catholic school
Hmm.
most of my formative years and even into college. And just being created in a higher power's image, that makes you worthy from the get-go.
Right.
So I
Right.
appreciated that, and I've held on to that in times of despair and in times of when life's not so fluffy and colorful. And
Hmm.
I mean, life is messy. We're
Hmm.
human dealing with other humans. Life is going to be messy, and we're going to have, you know, points that are not as they're points of being sad. They're points of being, why in the hell am I still doing this?
Hmm.
And you know, points where we're going to question our own worth.
Totally.
I think that's normal.
Totally. Totally is. Yeah, it's like, yeah, knowing a truth doesn't always mean that we believe the truth, right? In our day to day, or like things come up where you're like, at least I'm like, I'm a good mom. And then the next day I'm like, oh, like something happened. And then some part of me is like, I'm obviously not a good mom because this happened, right? But it's like that inner work of figuring out like that's not, that doesn't make the truth changing. It's just like you're processing through it and you're, yeah, seeking out, resources and support and like connections when those truths are harder to access for you, right? In those seasons of like depression or despair or just like feeling kind of uninspired or kind of like, what's the point, right? Because I think we all probably experience those at some points in our lives. Sometimes we think it's something that is wrong with us, or like we need to change something external, or we need to like, if we can't make it better, it's like something's wrong with us,
Hmm.
right? But yeah, it's not the
Hmm.
truth.
Yeah. And one thing I would say is that I think we're, as I think many female physicians, at least for myself, as an empath, and I'm using that word empath, right?
Hmm.
I tr- I've made the mistake in the past of um trying to make somebody else's decision mine or my responsibility, and I that's where I think boundaries really come into to play. Is that, whoa, that's not mine to take on.
Hmm.
I can still empathize with X, Y, and Z, but that does not mean I need to take that on, and that's where that stops.
Totally.
Um, Almost not necessarily a detached attachment, or not necessarily
Yeah.
complete detachment, but honoring it and saying, okay, this is my responsibility. This is not my responsibility.
Hmm.
And I'm going to draw a boundary here, whether it's for emotions or thought processes. Again,
Hmm.
because I can't stay there. I can't dwell there.
Right. No, totally. That's like an art. That's beautiful. That's an art to like be in a relationship and be, because the impact, you feel a lot of the energy, right? And you feel a
Yeah.
lot of you take on a lot of their stuff. And then you have a practice or I don't know, a way that you're also recognizing and knowing like where the boundary is between you and that other person, right? Without detaching, without like feeling cold hearted or like not present, but you're also like, what is mine? Being really clear about like what is mine, what is not mine. And then there can still be like connection, empathy, love, all that stuff that exists between you and that other person. But I think that's really hard. So I applaud you for doing that because it's really hard.
It's really hard, but it's been a practice that I've developed and honed over the last several years, right? It's not something that,
Mm.
just like you were mentioning mindfulness or the meditation, and it's not to say this is going to fix the system. No, the system in the
Mm-mm.
United States, the healthcare system sucks.
Yep.
But we either you leave it or you learn how to navigate within it and
Yeah,
still advocate for change.
totally.
So,
Totally.
and
That's what
those are skills. Sorry, those are skills that you've honed.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I was gonna say that about like the healthcare system stuff. Like, I had a coach or someone I worked with once that I was really like trying to make a decision of like whether I should leave healthcare, right? Just because I was so frustrated with so many things, and it was like I didn't feel like I had a lot of agency or power in some areas that I just like really conflicted with my values, right? Um, and I don't remember the exact whole process, but I remember coming to like an insight that they gave me was essentially like, um, if how does it say? Like I always have a choice, right? And so by being in healthcare, staying employed, I'm part-time, which helps a lot. But by doing that, I am making a choice, even though X, Y, and Z is not changing. Like I'm making a choice to continue to be part of it. And in that way, it's empowering in some ways because it's like I'm choosing this hard because of these things that slightly outweigh the negative, right? And like the ways I can bring my whole self and my little micro areas of like where I have influence, like that matters enough to me at this point, right? Um, And so it's like, yeah, when you define it as like a choice, and I'm like, I don't want to say participating in the system, but you're choosing to still be there, even though all these things are frustrating with you. I think it does bring you that a little bit more sense of like peace about it, like I have a choice and I'm doing it because these things still matter to me. And it's tolerable for me to do this because of these things that are kind of the deeper whys. I don't know if that makes sense. It was just rambling.
Makes 100% sense to me. Yes, no, I also work part-time, and the thing is that I can keep my foot in the insane healthcare system, still
Mhm.
interact with the patients and the internal medicine that I absolutely love. I can
Mhm.
still work with medical students and pre-meds because that fills my cup. I
Mhm.
again, going back and trying to slowly change that culture of medicine. Every person that we get to interact with is a chance to make the future better.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's like the small ripple effects that then ripple effects again.
Yes. Yes, because we're also patients as well.
Mhm.
And at some point in time, I'm going to be training my replacement.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I want to have a positive effect.
Yes. Yeah. For like aging parents, right? It's like that's closer to home, or it feels, yeah, definitely more like you want them to have a great medical team and fulfilled physicians, right? And like
Right.
people that still care and they're not completely burned out, for sure.
Yeah. Because we know that the listening rate, the decision rate, I mean, the ability to make effective decisions
Hmm.
uh, decreases because of the lack of engagement between physician and patient, physician and team.
Hmm.
The complete ripple effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, how what advice would you give from any of the listeners that are maybe struggling to find their inspiration or are grieving just because, I mean, medicine is in so much of a disarray.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, I think I would say find ways, like however small, to prioritize yourself and build from there, starting super, super small, right? With little ways to say yes to yourself and fill up your cup, even in a very small way. Like, don't deprive yourself of that 2-minute walk outside to get the sun on your face. Don't deprive yourself of like a fancy latte because you feel like you don't really need it and it's not necessary, right? In the middle of your day. Like those are, I think, the ways it can kind of start where you kind of pay attention to yourself and your desires. Um, we're very conditioned not to do that or to like push them away or not even like recognize them. Um, but if you're in a place where you're feeling like super beaten down, like it probably is not very realistic to you to like make radical changes or just blow up things and start over. Like that doesn't even feel like remotely logical. And so I really think it's like the tiniest ways that feel like something that you want. And it's like just checking in, right? Be like, what do I really want to do right now? And then even if 1% of the time you say yes to yourself and do it, like I think that's where it grows. And then I would say just like you don't know where to start and you're not like connected to things that you feel like are inspiring in your life, you know, be access as much curiosity as you can and follow that curiosity. Because I think where our curiosity lies, like that's where when we follow that, when we pay attention to that, that's I think what leads us to like the things, the people, the places, like the practices that are inspiring to us, right? Um, and just paying attention and being like, that's interesting. Wonder what that's like, or wonder why I'm like drawn to that. And instead of like shutting that down, like just take a little turn and see what's there. Just be just be a little tiny bit curious and open that door. And I think that the more you do that, the more it like legitimately lets your body, lets your mind, lets yourself know like it's okay, it's safe, right? It's safe to try, it's safe to explore in tiny, tiny ways of like the things that you're passionate about that light you up. And with that practice over time, like you will start to discover things that make you know and like the things that really give back to you, right? So it's not, you don't have to know. Like if you have like, I don't know, I haven't done anything like that for myself for a really long time, like that's okay, right? You can still just like start very small, be curious, and just like see where it leads you.
No, thank you for that. Thank you for that 100%. And I would really add also to that amazing answer to write down. I'm not one to necessarily journal, but
Hmm.
to draw it out, walk it out, talk it out. I'm more of a list maker.
Hmm.
List why you're grieving. List where your points of
Yeah.
frustration. I mean, honor that. Get it
Yeah,
out. Get it out in the open.
for sure.
And then expand on why do you feel that way? And if you are more of I want to fill my cup, how do I do that?
Hmm.
All the curiosities. I mean, I would have to say have I appreciate my son who's 6. He is so into primates of all things. Primates. So
Uh-huh.
he loves he loves them. I don't the his curiosity about them, his passion about them, it just makes me stop and remember. It's really important to have those points
Hmm.
of interest, those points that make you just light up and you keep going down that rabbit hole to find what next. And I just started with something as simple as a picture of a mandrill from one of my daughter's field trips.
Yeah,
So it can be so that's going back to that's a anecdotal story of explore that interest, keep going down that rabbit hole because it might lead to a whole new world that you don't know that you never knew that you would be drawn to.
totally, totally. That's really cool. I love that the kids can do that for us too. And like the things that they like, you're like, okay, that's awesome. Like embrace it, you know?
But I mean, I also think that we can learn from the smallest
Mm.
people.
Hmm.
The complexities of life are real, but it's an art to learn how to pause and just take all the amazingness in.
Totally. Totally. Being present where we are and like noticing the beauty, right? Noticing like the fall
Yeah.
leaves. Like, yeah, I have a 2.5-year-old is my youngest, and she's like totally obsessed with the leaves right now. But I like them and I like the fall leaves and I like notice them once in a while. But like it's like every time we're outside, she's like, Mama, look, these ones are blue or not blue. These ones are red and green and a little bit pink. Like it's just like every tree, like she notices day to day, like the changes. And it's like makes me stop and look and be like, it is really beautiful. Like, wow, right? And um, yeah, the simple things that they can teach us and slow us down, be present is like pretty cool.
Yeah. So if the listeners wanted to reach out to you and learn more about your work, what is the best way to do so?
You can check me out on LinkedIn, or you can go to my website. Um, it's I have a podcast too, I should say. It's called
Yeah.
Vibrant Humans. Um, and it's on Spotify and Apple. So if you want to listen to me chat about things personal development related, um, you can find me on that podcast, or and I also can probably find a link to my website there.
These links will be in the show notes.
Awesome.
What is one last pearl of wisdom you'd like to leave the listeners?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Maybe use your emotions as cues, as like indicator lights of what you might need and what might even like the next step for you be. Like you were talking about the listing things that you don't like or that aren't going well or that you're dissatisfied or just done with maybe. And kind of tapping into like what are the emotions under those. It can be positive, negative, neutral, but really I think emotional world is, and understanding our emotions can be like a true superpower because it cues us into so much of what we need, what we desire. And so paying attention to them and looking at them as clues for yourself, I think is a wise thing to be curious about and discover for yourself.
Yes, and even though it might be uncomfortable, it is definitely worth the time and effort because you're going to learn more about yourself. Going back
Yes,
to what we were discussing in the first part of the podcast, you're going to learn
totally.
more about yourself,
Hmm.
and that can trigger more curiosity or maybe an area like a blind spot.
Yeah,
And it's all about still growing, not just as a physician, but as a person, as a parent. And it's nonstop. And sometimes you just have to figure out, okay, where am I missing my growth?
hmm,
What needs more attention today, this week, this month? And that's gonna change in time. And that is okay. That is a lot of these things are so fluid, they're not linear.
totally, totally. And it's okay to get support in them. Like I think I tried to do DIY it for myself for a long time, right? Um, but you miss a lot of your own blind spots when you're trying to do that. And so like if you're noticing some emotions or some things or some thoughts and you're like, oh, I don't really know what to do about that, it's like having that supportive person or community can be like, I don't know, expediting in your growth, I think, because they offer that outsider's view and perspective and in a compassionate way can like help you see the things that are hard to see on your own that help you, right? And to help you grow.
100%, 100%. And that can be a mentor, a sponsor, a
Hmm.
coach, a therapist, even
Hmm.
your own PCP. I mean, don't forsake yourself and those lifelines that we let patients know that are present. Remember that they're present for us as well.
Totally. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, Savna. Yeah, it was so fun to talk with you too. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode from the Worthy Physician Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who'd love it too. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram for more updates and insights. Until next time, keep inspiring, learning, growing, and living your best life.